For years, I thought I had the perfect life, the perfect marriage. Every morning, I woke up next to David, the man I thought I would grow old with. Our apartment, though small, felt like a home filled with love and laughter. I remember how we would spend weekends curled up on the couch, sharing stories about our day or cooking together in the kitchen, him pretending to be a terrible cook while secretly impressing me with his skills. He was everything I had ever dreamed of, kind, loving, and attentive. Our life together was smooth, like a fairy tale, and I believed it would always be that way. But that all changed in an instant. David and I had been married for almost 2 years. We were in our late 20s, still young enough to dream about the future, but settled enough to feel like we were building something together. Our love had always been easy. No big fights, no deep secrets, just a comfortable rhythm. He had a job that kept him busy, but we made it work. I trusted him completely, and I didn't think twice when he went on business trips or stayed late at work. Everything felt right, and there were no cracks in the picture I had built in my mind. But then, one day, the smallest thing caught my attention. It was nothing at first, just a tiny shift. I noticed David being a bit more distant, a little more absorbed in his phone, a little less present when we were together. At first, I brushed it off. I convinced myself it was just the stress of his job, or maybe I was imagining things. I was the one who had been working long hours too, so maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was being paranoid, or maybe it was just jealousy creeping in. I told myself it didn't matter. I had no reason to doubt him. He was my husband, and I trusted him with my whole heart. But deep down, something nagged at me, just a small voice whispering that things weren't quite as they seemed. I tried to ignore it, pushing it aside whenever it crept into my thoughts. After all, there was no real evidence of anything, just a gut feeling that I didn't want to confront. It wasn't like me to feel this way, so I did what any person would do. I convinced myself that it was all in my head. Everything was fine. But then, everything changed, and I couldn't deny it any longer. As the days passed, the changes in David became harder to ignore. At first, it was small things, little, almost imperceptible shifts in his behavior. He was always on his phone, more than usual. I didn't think much of it at first. He had work to do, after all. But what caught my attention was how he would hide the screen whenever I walked into the room. It wasn't a big deal, I told myself. Maybe he was just reading something personal or planning a surprise for me. Still, the gesture felt strange, like a small wall going up between us. Then there were the moments when we'd sit together on the couch or have dinner, and I noticed how distant he seemed. His eyes would wander off, lost in thought, and his responses were short, almost distracted. He no longer reached for my hand when we sat close or kissed me goodbye like he used to. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was stressed at work, or perhaps he was just going through a phase. Everyone has their moments of being distant, I thought. It didn't mean anything. But as the days turned into weeks, the small changes started adding up. David began going out more, always with some vague excuse. It's a work dinner, he'd say, or I'm meeting some friends after work. I didn't think much of it at first. He worked hard, and he deserved a little time to unwind with friends. But something didn't sit right with me. The dinners and outings became more frequent, and the explanations more vague. One evening, when I asked about a specific dinner, something in his voice shifted. His tone was defensive, and he quickly changed the subject. It was subtle, but it hit me hard, like a gut punch I couldn't ignore. The more I thought about it, the more the unease crept in. My mind began to race, and a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. It wasn't just my imagination. Something was off. I questioned myself, telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. But deep down, I knew something had changed in our relationship. That once perfect bond we shared now felt fragile, like it could shatter with a single word. The more I tried to brush it off, the more undeniable the shift became. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, unsure of what to expect, but certain that I was teetering on the edge. One afternoon, as I was cleaning up in the kitchen, I noticed David's phone sitting unattended on the counter. It wasn't unusual for him to leave it there, but today, something inside me snapped. I had spent weeks feeling this gnawing sense of doubt, and I couldn't shake the growing anxiety anymore. I knew it wasn't right, but the temptation to know for sure, to uncover whatever truth was buried beneath the layers of silence, was overpowering. I picked up his phone, feeling the weight of my decision with every second that ticked by. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it with the code I'd always known. I never imagined I'd be doing this, going through his messages like some kind of spy, but there I was. Scrolling through texts, I felt like I was about to cross an invisible line. But the moment I saw the first few words, my heart dropped. The texts were innocent enough at first, nothing that would raise any alarms. But then I saw it, a message that seemed too personal, too intimate, sent between David and a woman I didn't recognize. The messages were vague, almost flirtatious in tone, hinting at a closeness that made my stomach turn. There was no direct mention of anything concrete, just a reference to meeting up and vague expressions of missing each other. It was like reading between the lines of something I wasn't supposed to see, but the more I read, the more a sick feeling swelled in my chest. Still, there was no solid proof. Just whispers of a relationship that I didn't want to believe. Frustrated, I put the phone back down and went to the next thing on my mind. David was always using his personal computer for work, and I had seen him leave it open a few times, but I had never thought to look through it. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but now, with the weight of those messages sitting heavy in my mind, I needed more. Maybe there was something there that could explain it all, something that would either confirm my darkest thoughts or make me feel foolish for ever doubting him. I opened a laptop, and my fingers hesitated over the keyboard. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but the act felt so final, like crossing a line I could never uncross. After a few moments, I found the folder. It was tucked away in a corner of his desktop, labeled simply Vacation Photos. David had mentioned going away with friends last year, but I hadn't thought twice about it. But now, with my heart pounding, I clicked on it. The first few pictures seemed innocent enough, pictures of beaches, sunsets, and drinks shared with friends. It looked like any other vacation album. But as I scrolled further, my breath caught in my throat. There, in the middle of the album, were the photos that I couldn't unsee. Intimate pictures of David and another woman. They were smiling at each other, clearly enjoying each other's company in a way that didn't feel like a friendship. In one, they were holding hands, standing close together. In another, they were kissing, their faces full of joy, completely unaware of the devastation it would bring me. My hands trembled as I scrolled through more pictures, each one making the pit in my stomach grow deeper. My mind screamed for a different explanation. Maybe it was an old picture. Maybe it was someone who looked like David, but I knew deep down that it wasn't. The face in those photos, the tenderness in their embrace, the way their eyes locked in a way that spoke volumes, it was David, and it was real. I sat there, numb, staring at the screen, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My mind refused to accept it. Maybe it was some kind of mistake, some cruel joke. I told myself over and over that it wasn't real, that it couldn't be. But the more I tried to deny it, the more I realized that I was staring at the truth hidden in plain sight. That evening, I couldn't shake the storm of emotions brewing inside me. Anger, heartbreak, betrayal, each one clawing at me like an uncontrollable force. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I needed answers, and I needed them now. My mind raced as I paced around the apartment, trying to calm my breathing, rehearsing what I was going to say. Every time I thought of David's face, his warmth, his charm, everything I had trusted, it all felt like a cruel lie. I had to confront him. There was no other choice. The clock ticked slowly as I waited for him to come home. Every second stretched into an eternity. I could feel the weight of the photos in my hand, the damning evidence of his betrayal. My pulse quickened as I heard the sound of the door unlocking. He was home. David walked in, as he always did, with a smile on his face and a tired look in his eyes. He was about to ask how my day had gone when I stood up, my body stiff with the tension I could barely contain. I didn't say a word at first. I simply walked over to the couch, turned the laptop toward him, and clicked on the folder with the photos. His smile faltered when he saw the screen. It took him a moment to process what was happening, his eyes flickering between me and the images, but there was no denying what was right in front of him. For a second, he froze, his face paling as his eyes scanned the photos. I could see the shift in his expression, the way his breath caught in his chest. But then, just as quickly, he began to speak, his voice steady but defensive. "It's not what you think," he said, trying to sound calm, collected. "These pictures, they were taken before we got married. We were just friends, it wasn't serious." I didn't move, didn't say anything. I just watched him, hoping to see something, anything, that would explain what I was seeing. But his words didn't make it better, they only dug the hole deeper. He was lying, and I could feel the weight of that lie crashing down on me. "It was just a work thing," he continued, his eyes avoiding mine. "We went to a conference, and it got a little personal. It was nothing. Just a mistake. It meant nothing." I shook my head, feeling my heart shatter with every word he spoke. "David," I finally said, my voice shaking but firm, "you're telling me that all these photos, all this intimacy meant nothing?" He sighed, his face tightening with frustration. "You're overreacting. We were just having fun, that's all. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it. It's not what you think." His words were like daggers, but what hurt more was the way he tried to downplay everything, like it didn't matter, like I was the one making a mountain out of a molehill. I could feel the anger rising in me, my chest tight with the weight of his denial. He wasn't even sorry. "Don't you dare tell me I'm overreacting," I shot back, my voice growing louder, more desperate. "How can you stand there and tell me this is nothing? These pictures, this is real. You lied to me. You betrayed me." David's face twisted in frustration, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of guilt, perhaps, but it was quickly buried under a mask of defensiveness. "I'm telling you, it's not what you think. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You're just looking for something that isn't there." I could feel the tears building in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. The truth was right in front of me, and yet he still tried to deny it. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even acknowledging the pain he had caused. Instead, he was gaslighting me, making me question my own reality. I felt so small, so foolish for ever trusting him this much. I stood up, unable to look at him any longer. "I don't know who you are anymore, David. I don't know how I didn't see this before." My voice cracked as I spoke, the weight of the betrayal threatening to crush me. "You can try to convince me it's nothing, but deep down, you know it is." He stood there, silent for a moment, watching me. His lips parted, but no words came out. I could see the regret in his eyes, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. David's words hit me like a punch to the gut. He tried to explain, but his justification felt like salt on an already open wound. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. "I was just unhappy. I felt disconnected. I needed something more, something I couldn't find at home." I could barely breathe as he spoke. The words felt like a betrayal in themselves. He admitted to the affair, but the way he downplayed it, it was as if none of it mattered. As if everything we had built together, was nothing more than a footnote in his search for something he couldn't even define. "I never meant to hurt you," he continued, his eyes shifting away from mine, avoiding the reality of the situation. "I was just searching for something I couldn't find in our relationship." Something inside me snapped. I couldn't hold back anymore. My hands trembled as I clenched them into fists, and before I could stop myself, the words spilled out in a rushed torrent of anger and pain. "How could you do this to me, David? How could you betray everything we had? Do you know how this feels? How long I've been trusting you, believing in us, only for you to throw it all away." My voice broke, a sob escaping before I could stop it. He stood there, silent, watching me with that same defeated look. I could see the guilt and regret written all over his face, but it didn't make it any easier. It didn't erase the anger boiling inside me, the sense of betrayal gnawing at my heart. He wasn't sorry enough. He wasn't showing me the remorse I needed to believe his words. I gave you everything, David. I loved you with everything I had. I choked on my own tears, feeling the weight of his lies suffocating me. And this is what I get? This was all just a game to you? How could you lie to my face every single day, knowing what you were doing? The room felt suffocating, the air thick with the weight of the truth we were both facing. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Every word, every excuse he made, felt like a dagger. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the realization that I didn't really know him at all. That everything I thought we had was a lie. All those moments I thought were real were nothing more than a facade. David stepped closer to me, reaching out, but I recoiled instinctively. "Don't touch me," I whispered, my voice raw. "Don't you dare touch me. You've ruined everything." His face twisted in anguish, and I could see how hard it was for him to accept what he had done. But even in that moment, I felt nothing but anger. He had broken me. I couldn't understand how the man I thought I knew, the man I trusted with everything, could have been capable of this. How could he look me in the eyes every day and pretend everything was fine while secretly seeking out someone else? My heart ached in ways I never thought possible. The man I had loved was a stranger now, and nothing would ever be the same again. "I don't know who you are anymore, David," I whispered, the tears flowing freely now. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." And with that, everything began to unravel. The life we had built, the trust one had placed in him, all came crashing down. The pieces scattered, and I was left standing there alone, with nothing but the wreckage of a relationship that was never what I thought it was. The days following the confrontation felt like a blur. The weight of everything that had happened crashed over me like an unstoppable wave. I needed to escape, to breathe, and to think. So I packed a bag and left. I couldn't stay in that apartment, not with the memories of what had just unraveled, not with the echo of David's lies still ringing in my ears. I want to stay with a close friend, someone who didn't ask questions, just opened the door and let me in. I was grateful for the silence, for the space to collect my thoughts. But even in the quiet moments, when I was alone, my mind wouldn't let me rest. I kept replaying everything, our life together, the small signs I'd ignored, the way David had changed, the way I had ignored the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. How did I miss it? How did I not see the cracks that were forming right in front of me? I had trusted him, believed in him. For years, I had convinced myself that our love was enough, that the future we were building together was real. But now I saw it all so clearly. It had all been an illusion. Every promise he made, every moment that felt like love, it was all tainted now. I spent hours reflecting on the way David had treated me. The way he had smiled, held me close, made me believe everything was perfect, when in reality, he had been lying to me the entire time. I realized just how much of our relationship had been built on false promises, on a foundation of deceit. I wasn't just hurt by the affair itself. I was hurt by the fact that I had allowed myself to be blind to the truth for so long. How could I have been so naive? But amidst the pain, there was also a deep, unsettling internal conflict. As much as I hated what he had done to me, as much as I wanted to hate him for the way he betrayed me, there was still a part of me that wanted to forgive him. I had loved him so deeply. The life we had shared, the memories, the plans, we had built so much together. It wasn't easy to just let it all go. But then, a quiet voice inside me reminded me of my worth. I had spent so much of my life giving everything to someone who didn't value it, didn't cherish it the way I deserved. I wasn't just angry. I was heartbroken, and in that heartbreak, I realized something crucial. I deserved better than the lies. I deserved someone who would love me, trust me, and be faithful. Someone who would never make me question my own worth, who would never make me feel small. As the days passed, the battle raged inside me. Part of me wanted to give him another chance, to let time heal the wounds, to somehow fix what had been broken. But the other part of me, the part that had been shattered by his betrayal, knew that I couldn't go back. Not to that life. Not to him. I spent so much time reflecting, crying, and wondering if I had done something wrong, if there was something I could have done to prevent this. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't me. It was him. His actions. His lies. The affair wasn't about me not being enough. It was about him not being honest, not being committed, not valuing what we had. I had to accept that sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes trust was the most important thing, and once it was gone, there was no way to rebuild it. And as much as it hurt, I knew I had to let go. I had to find my own strength again, my own sense of self-worth. The road ahead would be difficult, and I didn't know where it would lead. But I knew that no matter how hard it was, I deserved to move forward with my head held high, free from the chains of deceit and betrayal that had once bound me to David. The decision came after days of reflection, conversations with friends, and long talks with my family. I could feel the weight of their words, their concern for me, but it was the quiet moments alone that led me to the inevitable conclusion. I had to end this. I had to walk away. As the days passed, I started to realize that no matter how much I had loved David, no matter how many good times we had shared, trust had been shattered beyond repair. He had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and the love I had once felt for him had transformed into something far less pure resentment. I couldn't look at him without thinking of the lies, the secrets, and the pain he had caused me. What we had once shared seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the reality of deceit. Trust, once broken, can never truly be rebuilt. I knew that deep down, and despite the love I had once felt, I couldn't ignore the truth. There was no going back. I couldn't see a future with David anymore, not when every thought of him was tainted by the betrayal. I had to protect myself, to move forward with my life, no matter how difficult it was. So I made the decision. I gathered the strength to pack my things and leave. I didn't want to do it. Part of me still longed for the life we had planned, for the love we had promised each other. But I couldn't keep holding onto something that was no longer real. When I returned to our apartment, the place where we had once shared our dreams, it felt hollow. Every corner held memories of a life I had believed in, and now it all felt like a lie. I took a deep breath as I started gathering my things. There were so many emotions swirling inside me: anger, sadness, guilt, relief, but I kept pushing forward. I was leaving. I was finally letting go. When David came home that evening, I sat him down. His face lit up with that same old smile, but I couldn't feel the warmth anymore. There was nothing he could say that would change my mind. He tried, of course. He apologized, pleaded, and told me how sorry he was. He begged me to stay, to work through it, to give him a second chance. But in that moment, I realized something. There was nothing left to work through. The damage had been done, and no apology would ever undo the hurt. I looked at him one last time and told him it was over. The finality of my words hit me like a punch in the gut, but it was the truth. I had no more tears to shed for him. I was done. I walked out of the apartment, feeling the weight of years of emotions finally lifting from my shoulders. There was a bittersweet sense of relief, but also a hollow emptiness. I didn't know where I was going from here, but for the first time in a long while, I knew I was moving forward. The past was behind me, and while it hurt to leave it all behind, I knew it was the only way I could truly heal. And as I stepped out of the apartment, I felt a sense of freedom. The love I had once given so freely was now something I was reclaiming for myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done being a prisoner to his lies. The days that followed were far from easy. Healing never is. I found myself waking up each morning with the same question echoing in my mind: how do I begin again? But slowly, piece by piece, I started to rebuild. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about finding a way to move beyond it. Each day, I took small steps toward rediscovering who I was without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. I spent time with people who truly cared for me, and I started focusing on things that made me feel alive again. The hobbies I had neglected, the dreams I had put on hold, all of them began to come back into focus. I realized I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. I didn't need to rely on anyone else's love or approval to feel whole. The love I had been searching for was always within me. And through it all, I learned a very important lesson: that trust is fragile and that self-respect is non-negotiable. No matter how much I loved David or wanted to believe in the life we had built together, I couldn't allow myself to be a part of something that wasn't built on honesty and respect. That realization, though painful, freed me. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to anyone's love or loyalty, but to my own sense of self-worth. Sometimes, the hardest thing in life is letting go of someone you thought would be there forever. But it's the only way to move forward. Letting go is the beginning of something new, a chance to start over, to learn, to grow, and to rebuild your life with honesty and respect as your foundation. I hope if anyone else is walking a similar path, they find the courage to take that first step, no matter how hard it may seem. There's always a new beginning waiting on the other side of the pain.